check in and show you a few things as far as the farm plan is concerned. Just gonna, I'll just draw on it as well so you can see what's going on. So let's start with the water. So I've connected this dam and this dam together via this pipeline, which I expect this light, sort of navy blue colour here that goes all the way up to here. So if this dam's full or this dam's full and so on, that goes past this one here. So these are the two most reliable, and I expect that, as we talked about, we'd enlarge both of those, if at least this one, but if Rocker's got the dough, then do this one as well. Yeah, anyway, supply water go along this fence line here. That would be able to be done with a fire pump that you would pump from one or the other, and that would pump up to here. This is, from what I can tell, this is the highest point on the property. As we discussed, it would be good to put a tank stand up there, and if we can put the tank stand there, put a 10 or 20,000 litre tank there, then that's going to give you quite a supply of water and under pressure, which would be great for stock water and for any tree watering that you might want to do and so on. If you wanted to, you could also turn that off up here with a valve, and then if you wanted to pressurize this system, just turn the tank on, and then turn the pump on, and that pump would provide the pressure that you could use to do any irrigation that you wanted to of any tree lines or whatever. You need a minimum of about 6 to 8 metres of pressure to run that, which with a fire pump is running on about quarter revs, I'd reckon, in this installation. So with the front paddock, this whole section here, I didn't do Jack and Donna's block. The only thing I put in there was just looked at, fencing off that dam there, and putting the water line there as we discussed. So no tree lines. If they were interested in doing that, well then obviously we just extend them, but that's for another discussion. So the tree lines themselves, I've just had a single, so I've got a single row shelter belt along here, as we discussed, putting trees out on the actual roadside, because that would there's quite a verge there that could be utilised, and then on the fence side, on your side, just putting a single row, but we can discuss that further. As we come inside of here, there's I've gone basically north-south, so if I followed this road for the orientation, then then we'd be looking at more of a northeast, southwest orientation with the rows, and I'd prefer to go as close to north-south. So I use the entrance lane as the guiding line for this orientation. So we're at pretty well close to north-south. I've gone with a 20 metre turning area on the ends here, so there's plenty of room if there's any headers or any of that sort of thing going on, and with that headland, and then there's 40 metres in between here. This is all very easily adjusted, so if we wanted to go to 60 or 20 or whatever it is, then that's pretty straightforward. In terms of the water supply for there, so I've gone with a 40 millimetre, which is 1 3/4 inch set up here, 40 mil. That would run along there. That's a sub main, and then you'll see here every second row there's a delivery pipe, and that would have the hydrants probably about every 100 metres, which is pretty cheap, or cheaper to do than using the 2-inch or anything other. That'll give you plenty of flow, and the other thing you could use for that is if you've got any tree watering or firefighting or anything like that, you've got all the water you need in this section. I haven't gone to rockers yet, but we could quite easily put, say, a pipeline along here as well, to supply his, or even along here. That'd be pretty easy to sort of include that in there. I would go with a a main extension though. I wouldn't come off the 40 mil, so I'd run another main along here and then poke that inside here and run that through to there. So again, you know, for his place, to connect these dams to that tank, that would be really easy to do. And then he'd have plenty of water for all of this. With this paddock here, what I've done with the water is, I think what we'd probably do here is have hydrants set up along here, again at the 100 metre spacing along the main line. That's pretty easily done, again with threaded tees or threaded tee compression fittings. Then we could just tap off that. You know, you plumbed your whole place now, including right up on here. Because these paddocks, the reason why I haven't gone with this setup is, when we look at here, because of the length of these, like for example, this area here is about just a bit over an acre, right? This area along, so if you look at it similar, this is about an acre here, right? So whereas these are about 3 acres or so along these strips. So I think that with the numbers that you've got stock-wise, it'd be better if along here, if we just use the hydrants and the portable, so that the animals, so you'd basically fence off temporarily along here and along here, and then the animals just come back to the water, and then you go from one paddock to the next to the next. Whereas in this setup, there'll be hydrants along here, so you basically fence off little areas in between. So there'd be a fence there, and then a fence there. Sorry about my shit drawing. Another one here, and so on. So you'd go in. So in this instance, you'd be moving along like this, whereas in these, you'd be going from paddock to paddock. Same in here. So that's why I came up with that orientation, because of this is only 100 metres from here through to here. I went with an open plan here of 25 by 25 between single trees, and with this you can just simply fence off across the paddock like that, and then go back to your hydrant. So a similar setup. So again, you're sort of going from paddock to paddock to paddock, or little, you know, temporary paddock to paddock to paddock. So we're getting, you know, quite a few paddocks out of this. What else is there? Oh, with this paddock here, I sort of looked at it. That's their 20 metre alleys, just to give you a sense. And this could be a similar setup to what we've got here. It might actually be more amenable there to having a sort of a nice parkland type planting there, as opposed to this sort of alley system. That's a completely different aesthetic. So yeah, that's why I've sort of gone with that. Yeah, but anyway, it's a concept. When it comes to, this is the water conservation channel. So that would run along, and then I've run it so it would run here. So it falls all the way to here quite gradually, and then this last section, it's going to fall, I wouldn't say steeply, but it falls with a bit more gradient, and then that would run into the dam that way. So and ideally I'd bring that out. So we check the depth of the Telstra line, which runs along here, and I'd ideally run that out under the fence and catch any water that's coming down the lane here. So yeah, that would be awesome, and then that can then come through to here. I reckon that's about it. I just filled in these, you know, like we talked about. And fencing wise, so I've marked out what I thought were all of the existing fences. I've taken this one out. I don't see the need for that, so I'll just make that all part of that. But I'll have fenced off. I'll just get rid of these lines. I have fenced off this dam, and as I said, I've done this one. I've fenced off this dam and this dam, right? So they're all pretty straightforward. You can just use shitty wire for that, just some ring lock or whatever. I've gone out wider on this. I feel that it's a lot. My strategy with fencing off creeks is always to go a lot wider than a lot of people do, including what's happened here in some cases. I think it's better to, because you can see already the influence of vegetation and whatnot along there, and even where you've got the cliff. The cliff is a drainage system, and so when you're within a few metres of it, there's no vegetation anyway, so you may as well push the fence out a bit, and I'd even consider going out a bit wider here, ditto on this side, maybe out to here, and then you make it a paddock in itself, because if you get enough of an area, enough of a buffer on either side, then that allows for that. Similarly with here, it may be that it's just better for us to just fence that off altogether and just create either a little fodder block in here or whatever, but just simply just do that, as opposed to having some pokey little fence inside of here just to retain a really small area. You can still use it as a paddock in a pulse, maybe do 2 or 3 grazes a year, but just make it so it's just reduce the volume of fencing that's required. Yeah, and it might be, I reckon, as well, to push this fence out, but that might mean that you get rid of this fence altogether and have a similar concept to this one here, where that's just a pulse paddock where you just bang animals in there, get them out, which is more or less what we're looking at for the whole thing anyway. Give long recoveries and all the rest of it. Okay, well that's what I had. Just got to work out how to stop this thing now, and I hope that's all pretty clear for you. All right, ciao.